No. Come on, where is it?
Dave, it's your Idaho Central app here. Any chance you're missing a debit card? Let's get that taken care of for you. With ICCU's card control, you can turn any card off with the tap of your finger.
You got it.
And back on again. Out, 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 out. The closest Idaho Central Credit Union branch is in your pocket.
It's the fall kickoff sale at Lithia Ford of Boise. We're going all the way so you can score more for your trade-in and trade up to a new Ford truck or SUV today. Visit Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
It's time for Ball Talk with Sanford and Johnny. From what's happening on the Blue at Boise State to the Mountain West and beyond. The biggest storylines, the best guests, and most outlandish opinions from two dudes who eat, sleep, and breathe college football. All Bronco Nation news broadcasts come from the Western Collective studios. Head down to Western Collective's locations in Garden City or downtown Boise to try some of their delicious beers, including the Horseshoe Golden Ale, the first beer to support an NIL collective. You can also pick up any of Western Collective's beers or vodka seltzers at most major retailers in Idaho. Ball Talk with Sanford and Johnny, featuring former Boise State quarterback and longtime coach Mike Sanford and KTIK 95.3 FM The Ticket's Johnny Mallory on Bronco Nation News.
Been to episode 8. It's that time. Ball Talk, Bronco Nation News. Johnny Ballgame, Coach Mike Sanford with you on this fabulous the night before Halloween Wednesday. Coach, you're full-time dad now. You're going to be out with your trick-or-treaters, I'm sure, tomorrow. Something you couldn't always do when you were coaching. What's going on in the Sanford house? What are you guys? You guys one of those families that everybody kind of dresses up in the same theme?
No, gosh, no. You can't. There's no way that we could get those three scoundrels all in agreement of what they should be dressed up as. I think that we have a Fortnite character. I have no idea what my daughter is. My Griffin is Harry Potter. No idea what my wife is. All I know is that I made a big purchase today at Spirit Halloween costume store, and I'm going to be Bob Ross tomorrow, but keep that quiet. Okay. I got my palette ready. I got the fro and the beard. It's going to be pretty sweet. And I'm actually doing a live TV show tomorrow night, showing up as Bob Ross, and they got no clue. So it's
that's going to be money. That's going to be money, man. I can't wait to see the pictures on social media. So I'm not sure what we're doing. I'm probably just going to hand out candy tomorrow night, chill, watch some NFL football. I don't know what's scarier, the trick-or-treaters or the way Aaron Rodgers is playing quarterback. Boom! Ball talk on this one. Before we get into this, your thoughts on the win in Las Vegas, the position that your alma mater, Boise State, is in. A lot of stuff to get to tonight, but I wanted to ask you because I was looking, they're ranked 15th, and I'm thinking, okay, and I'm looking the last time they were ranked 15th. The first time they were ranked 15th was the final poll of the 2002 season. Mm-hmm. First time this program was ever ranked, Coach, was November 17th, 2002, when your Boise State Broncos appeared at number 23 in the Associated Press poll. First time ever, as I said, in program history, they were ranked. Was that a big deal. I'm guessing it was. I think you probably have some stories behind that. I think it was a huge deal for the fan base.
Johnny, it was massive. Like it was surprising to me, who grew up the son of a coach that was at USC for 8 of, my 18 years before I left the nest and just
and then Notre Dame. And then Notre Dame. They ranked a few weeks.
I remember plenty of times where my dad coached at Notre Dame and USC, and we weren't ranked at all. And so it was like, Dad, I chose a school. We didn't think it was going to be a top 25 outfit, and yet here we are. The thing that was so interesting about those times and being ranked, nevers are meant to be broken, right? And nevers are never forever. And that's what that time period was for Boise State. And it was awesome. It really was. Like,
I bet
it was giddy. Thunder Dan Hawkins was doing his best to make sure that we just kept our samurai swords in the quiver, and that we wouldn't pull it out until it was time for game day, and that we'd keep sharpening that sword all week. And that's exactly what we did, man. We didn't focus too much on the external. It is weird because it seems like a massive deal right now for Boise State in 2024 with the NIL and the portal to be ranked 15th in the country. But it's even weirder to think how big it is right now, and to think that in 2002, that we were ranked, in that similar position. It's wild. Like it doesn't compute for some reason in my very stupid brain. But yeah, it was a big deal, Johnny, and it was something that we were all very well aware of. And I think there was a chip on our shoulder at that time, having never been ranked, to, play with some style points. And we had to earn our right in, and it wasn't just if we won, it was how we won. And that was a bit of a different era that way. It seemed like in 2002, there were a lot more of the haves, and then a massive separation with the have-nots. There were even within power conferences, there were the total have-nots in the bottom half or the bottom third that never got ranked. And that's really changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. Because I think 22 years ago, it was, you saw about the same teams every year in the top 25. So it's like Boise State, what are they doing there? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a really interesting time. It was a great time. It was a lot of fun.
Do you remember like Hawk coming in when you guys found out and like told you guys, hey, just FYI, maybe he surprised you? I mean, you didn't have cell phones. The internet was hardly, you had AOL dial up. I mean, do you remember when everybody found out you guys were ranked for the first time?
Yeah, I had we had internet. We had cell phones. A lot of people, the funny thing in the early 2000s, a lot of the coaching staff, at least at Boise State, didn't really have a lot of, we'll call it experience surfing their flip phones to be able to conjure up scores and rankings. Yeah. The little tech nerd right here, Mike Sanford, did it. And this is a great story, Johnny. I'll never forget that I started when we were in the middle of a WAC championship race. I was able to check scores. I checked my dad's scores at University of Utah in 2003 and 4. My dad before that in 2002 was, I'm trying to think of where he was. He was the Chargers. And so I would check scores all the time. It was before, really nice apps. So you kind of had to surf around and grab that. Remember the old like web browser that you had to like direct the mouse to get to certain spots? Well, I was able to get scores while we were sitting and waiting to take off and fly after a road game. And I had those scores at my fingertips, and the coaching staff, will never forget, like Hawk and Rid and Pete, like they found out that I was able to give them real-time scores about what was going on in the Mountain West, or at the time, the WAC. And so I started becoming the score guy on the flights on the way back, and up until obviously we took off and got a bunch of feet above the ground. I was the score guy, and it'd be like, I'd end up having all the coaches kind of coming back, be like, hey, what's going on in that La Tech game? Hey, any updates on New Mexico State versus North Texas?
SMU? Wasn't SMU in that WAC with Rice?
Yeah, I don't even remember, man. It was such a wild time because we started out in the Big West and then we were in the WAC, and I think there was even some WAC changes even in the time I was there. The conferences, think about it, the Big West, the WAC, the Conference USA, and now AAC Mountain West. Dude, it just seems like it's just been the consistent aspect of those conferences has been inconsistency with the teams in them. And that was the case even back in 2004.
Okay, I got a nerdy question here on Ball Talk.
Let's get nerdy, man.
Your 2000, let's say the best Boise State team you played on, what would you say, what year? 2000 to 2003. If you could take that team in a hypothetical scenario, which year?
I think it probably, when I was in the middle of it, 2000 to 04, dude, I always looked up to 2000s team. And that was because Bart Hendricks was a hero to me. He was a guy that I had never seen do some of the things that he did as a runner, as an athlete, as a thrower. That 2000 team was freaking special. Brock Forsey was doing crazy things. Jeb Poutsier was a young tight end. That defense was so good. Shenard Hartz was awesome. So Q Mike was, I think he was like a sophomore that year.
Insane.
It was just a really good football team. And we had those awesome, like really old school throwback uniforms. And so it just kind of badass. They were just drippy, bro. And the AstroTurf, which was sun worn, it was a lot lighter. It just, man, those years were so cool. And so like even in 2004, when we went 12-0, I still look back at that 2000 team and I was like, that was the best team. But now, when you get a context of the whole picture and who we were competing against, man, I thought that 2003 team that went to TCU in the Plains Capital Fort Worth Bowl, was that 02?
That was 03. Barely lost in Corvallis.
Yeah, that
game pissed me off.
That 2003 team was freaking solid.
And that was a really good Oregon State team with the Rogers brothers and Derek Anderson.
And Steven Jackson, I believe. It was a really good team, man.
That was a hell of a game. You guys had your chances there. But yeah, that was that year. That was 03.
Yeah, I would say. And then 2004, man, we went undefeated, and just being a part of losing the starting competition to Jared Zabransky. And then, really starting my coaching career, I've said that many times in this program, is that while I was a backup quarterback, I wanted to prove the staff that they were wrong every day at practice. But then when game days came around, I was like, I'm going to be a coach, man. I'm going to encourage Z. I'm going to be the filter, the buffer, if you will, between, a young sophomore quarterback and, Chris Peterson that would fly off the handles at times. And it was really fun. Crazy. It was so fun to see him grow that year. It just, for me, even, I felt like I had skin in the game as a small part of his growth. And so, yeah, 2004 was pretty special.
Sorry, man. 2004. I was just going to say real quick, what was Pete and Z's relationship like that first year? Pete's coming off the RD era, just absolute excellence, efficiency, just really high level intellectual quarterback play. And you had a front row seat to the Z Coach Pete relationship. What stood out there?
It was really good relationship. It was a coach player relationship. It was a very confident, but also high anxiety offensive coordinator, Chris Peterson, that had just come off of really good seasons. And then, at least from my perspective, and you might call this selfish for me looking at it, that competition at quarterback was really close. And so it's almost like the fact that Jared Zabransky won that job, it was almost, I wouldn't say it was like held against him by any stretch of the imagination, but, the way in which Pete coached him was hard, but not in a mean, demeaning type of way. It was just every single freaking detail mattered so damn much to Chris Peterson. And I think Z, being the great athlete he was, the big arm talent that he had, at times was just like, dude, is this guy ever going to get off my case? And so I ended up being the guy in between a lot of times. And it was perfection of coaching. And frankly, it was perfection of the quarterback position for a first-time starter with big shoes to fill of Ryan Dinwiddie. And for Jared Zabransky to take on those shoes was a big, big situation. And I think that in and of itself made my relationship with Z that much stronger, was that just me as a human being looked at Z and saw that he was, I wouldn't say struggling because we won a bunch of games, but he was getting coached hard and he felt like it was never enough. And so I ended up at times being kind of the good cop and telling him, hey man, you're doing great, dude. Like just, hey, go out and play, follow what Coach Pete's telling you to do. You know, when it's the week of practice, work on all the footwork, but when it's time to go tee it up, man, don't think about, your grade sheet, just play football, and trust your training, fall back on your process of preparation. And Jared Zabransky did such a great job that year. That was a special year for Z. I think it was the 2005 year where I started my GA career at UNLV, and I was so busy. I didn't watch many games. That was a tough year from what I understand. It wasn't the same. And then 06 obviously was the incredible year with the Fiesta Bowl. And so, yeah, their relationship, Johnny, was really good, but I'd say it was a very traditional offensive coordinator, detailed, maniacal type of a guy in Chris Peterson with a young quarterback that, at times thought his shit didn't stink, but indeed it at times it did, right? And Pete was very quick to point it out. Even when it didn't stink, he was quick to point it out.
Yeah, and I love, kind of studying the relationship with the quarterback and his OC, head coach, QB coach. I mean, fill in the blank, whoever is kind of his main coach. That always fascinates me, man. One question here. Any teammate you ever played with that season, so say Bart in 2000 or Brock in 2002, one season, one player, you can take that, clone that dude and put him on this team in 2024 with this roster. You might not want Brock. You're okay at running back unless you want to play around there. One player, one teammate you had that you're putting on this team right now.
God, that's a good one, man. And this team is so stacked.
People can comment too, by the way. Get your comments in on that.
I would go, I believe either 2000 or 2001. I'm not 100% sure. I think Nardo had he was there my redshirt year in 2000. And I think his final season was 2001. But Shenard Hartz would be the guy, man. That dude, if for this team, and it's got a ton of talent on the back end. It's got a lot of, leadership traits, but Shenard Hartz was a baller. And he was also kind of I don't know, man. He was kind of there was a swagger to him. There was a mouthpiece to him that you want in your back end, that it was not just a mouthpiece of leadership like Tubner has. It was a bit of a mouthpiece of like, listen, like we're going to whoop your ass. And I loved that swagger, that demeanor. Seemed like he always got his hands on important footballs, whether it be a PBU or an interception. For me at the time, I was like, that's an NFL safety. And I was hanging around Chargers training camp. That was my dad's job. When I was at Boise State. And I was like, that's an NFL safety. And when you got a guy like that, particularly back in the day where, teams, I wouldn't say they were using as much quick passing game. It was run, play action, throw it down the field. And you got a guy that can be a two-way player as a box safety and just a tremendous, aspect to bring to the run stopping, but also could be, a roof safety. Shenard Hartz was phenomenal, man. That was a guy that I treated with so much reverence. I was like, dude, that guy's different.
Isn't that crazy? That position too. Those dudes were headhunters. They were ball hawking headhunters, back then when you could do that back there.
Yeah, you were allowed to. The game allowed you to be a dog.
It was encouraged. Yeah. If you didn't do that and you took it and you played how they did now, your coach might be like, what are you doing? That's not how we play here. Yeah, I mean, and that's changed so much. Has that, I mean, I don't want to ask you if it's better, but I mean, you've coached and played in both eras, but I mean, you coach probably a lot differently on offense, knowing that they can't do that to you. You're more likely to call maybe something that might more likely put a player in that type of situation.
Yeah, it's hard, Johnny. Because it's a double-edged sword as an offensive play caller. Because if you're putting plays out there that are putting a safety in a bad spot, frankly, you're also putting your offense in a bad spot. Because if they're in that position to knock somebody's head off and get a targeting and an eliminate, they get kicked out of the game, then they also, if the ball placement or timing of the throw is nanoseconds different. It could be a tipped ball because they got there earlier and the ball's up in the air helicoptering and it's an interception. So you don't touch, in my opinion, you don't touch that hot stove of saying, I'm going to call a play that could really put this big time safety in harm's way. It's just kind of, honestly, it's just kind of a matter of the flow of the game. Just, you could go through a 10 weeks in a season as a safety and not be in that situation. And then say 3 weeks in a row, you're in that situation. And we've seen that with Alexander Tubner. It's not like Tubes hasn't been out there and just looking to knock someone's head off and try to get, disqualified from the contest or the second or the first half of the next contest.
Yeah.
It just kind of presents itself and you're playing hard and you don't have a chance to really process that information in split second timing. So it just does happen. And there's really not much you can do about it, man.
What do you do this? How do you, as an offensive coordinator, as a play caller, how do you teeter-totter, one being attacking an opponent's weakness? We love the matchup. Their nickel stinks. We have the data. We're putting this stuff in this week. And priority, you got 3 first down play actions you love to the slot. And the only reason is because you're going to attack that corner. Even though maybe that slot isn't the biggest strength of your offense, you're attacking a weakness. How do you do that versus we're going to play to our strengths? This is what we do best. This is what we're going to do. Even though we know they're game planning against us, we're going to do that. I mean, I'm sure that's what play calling is, right? You're attacking weaknesses, but also playing to your own strengths. And that's got to be, Jesus, man, that's got to be really hard to do in front of 100,000 people with everything else going on. Did I describe that accurately at all?
Well, ball game, here's the deal is I think a offensive coordinator's dream scenario is when they can attack a structure of defense. And for me, I always loved seeing cover 4. Like it was an offensive coordinator's dream. It like the thing about cover 4 and why defenses do run a lot of cover 4 is because you are pretty safe on everything. Like you're pretty good against the run fit because both your safeties are typically very involved in the run fit. You do have, a 2 high safety structure, but they're not playing super deep.
Okay.
Yeah, they're playing at some people play their cover 4. Their 2 high safeties are at 8 yards.
Well, look at the athletes now too, and the ground they can cover and how quick they can do it.
Yeah, and then but I love seeing like quarters defense when the safeties were at like 10 to 11 yards. They're flat-footed. You have the nickel against, any type of 2x2 formation where he's playing in between the number 2 receiver and the offensive end man on line of scrimmage, which would be the tackle in 2x2, because like your opportunity to find completion plays was so high, your opportunity to be able to RPO and find those windows basically over those backers that are fitting against run play action. And then in front of those safeties, there's plenty of just easy completion plays there. But man, the shot plays are just glorious when you're playing flat-footed cover 4 safeties. Like the opportunity to just throw the football over people's heads is just glorious. I'd say that's number 1. That's the offensive coordinator's wet dream, if you will, is seeing cover 4. Okay. You love consistency of a schematic structure of a defense. Like against this particular formation, this particular personnel grouping, we're going to get this look 87% of the time. And I'm like, chef's kiss. Let's go to work.
Is that in your head? Is that on a chart? Is that your tight end coach freaking reminding you in your headset?
No, it's like I actually put that on my game plan. So if I found any type of heavy tendencies, I would have, that either that situation, that formation. So that formation would have the play calls in them. And I would say with this personnel grouping, this formation, we get 73% cover 6, which is quarters, and then basically a cover 2 hybrid into the boundary. And so if I said that, I'm like, oh, I know exactly how I want to attack this. And if you get the outlier look, that's where you have your check mechanism built in. So your point, asking about how to scheme for an opposing defense's weaknesses. The crazy thing is when you go out, when you look at the stat sheet and you see, you see that this team is giving up all the passing yards they're terrible against the pass. For the Broncos right now, they're playing the Baltimore Ravens, who are dead last or like second to last in the NFL in defensive pass defense. And I think that's one of the biggest fool's gold situations for an offense. You watch the film, you're like, dude, I don't really like anything against this defense. And what it really ends up being is because a lot of those defenses are playing with a massive lead for a good chunk of their football games, and teams are forced to pass. And so you get yarded via the pass game. So
and you get sacks if that's the type of defense you're in. If you're playing with a lead, your pass rushers have so many more opportunities to get sacks. Typically, the best offensive teams will be very good at sacks defensively as well, as you know. But yeah.
And so the narrative within media circles, and I've learned this because there's different types of information that media members have. A lot of it is just, they have to look at the stats. They have to listen to the quotes from the head coaches. Dude, there's so much BS between those two combined. Stats lie, man. A lot. Not all the time, but a lot. They lie a lot because they don't tell you exactly who you've played the whole year. They don't tell you, what the lead discrepancy was in all those different times. And then the other thing is, what head coaches say. Dude, if you take a head coach or a coordinator for exactly what they say all the time, you're an idiot. Like, I'm just going to tell you, we use, it's not just me. I tried to be as honest as I could, but we also know that our opponent's watching that. Duh. Like, what are we going to just give them the keys to what?
You would listen to your opponent's head coach's presser?
Yeah, I would listen as a coordinator. Shoot, even when I was a running back coach at Stanford, I was the guy on the staff. I wasn't even given this assignment, Johnny. I would watch every press conference from the head coach, from the offensive and defensive coordinators. And then I would take notes and I'd go and just meet with the offense and defensive coordinator and head coach and just say, this is what they said. I think this is BS. I think this is just narrative, but this was interesting. And so there were times where I saw head coaches and coordinators that were just blatantly honest. And I'm like, you're an idiot. You're gonna get fired. So those are the things that I didn't listen. Now the film never tells the story of the stats and what the coaches are saying in their pressers. I'm just going to be honest, dude. Like, it never does. Rarely it does. If a team is like number one in the conference in rush defense, usually turn the film on and they are a son of a gun to prepare for. That's the one stat. Rush defense. That's how you win championships.
That holds up. That's the one to look at.
That holds up, dude. And so if they're number one in the conference, top 5, top 10 in the country, you're like, oh boy. And it's never a good feeling going into a game plan, in my opinion. If you're in a championship race and you're trying to win a conference championship, like Boise State right now, competing for national championships, call like it is. When you're preparing for a team and they're terrible against the pass defense and they're awesome against rush defense, you don't just look at it and be like, yeah, we're just going to throw the ball 60 times this game because that's what the stats say. Because typically that's not exactly how it looks. If you're really good at rush defense, you already said it, Johnny, you're really good at rushing the passer. You got just absolute effort players up front. You usually have great length in your defensive ends, defensive linemen, so you throw the ball against those types of looks, you're going to give up sacks, possible sack fumbles, possible, defensive linemen batting balls down. And then you start thinking about the different turnover scenarios, and the stakes get really high when you're in week 7, week 8, week 9, right? And so those are the teams that I think are challenging to prepare for. So how's San Diego State against the run, man?
I don't have the exact numbers. The game notes are in my backpack. We'll get to that in a second. I do want to ask you, though, speaking of run defense, is UNLV at the top of the Mountain West last week. Your thoughts? Boise State 29-24 in Vegas to get to 6-1. And we haven't talked about the win.
Big time win, Johnny. Big time win. And it was a complete win. I tweeted out, not much because I was fairly busy. I can't remember. I had something with the family. I watched the whole game. It was just a great victory for everybody. And I thought that, the narrative nationally, and I'll get into this in a second, is that Ashton Jeanty didn't have a great game against a group of 5 team. I disagree with that. I thought UNLV is really good against the run. I think they have really good players. I think the discipline and the maturity and the cohesiveness of Boise State was far better, Johnny, than that of UNLV. And it played out down the stretch. Most games are lost, not won. And I do think that Maddox Madsen, the defensive front, particularly Ahmed Hassanin and that group. They won this game, but UNLV lost this game with untimely penalties, personal foul, late hits. It was bad, man. And so if you're UNLV and you're a fan and ball, you're pissed, dude. You should be pissed because the game was there for the taking. What I do think what did transpire in this game, and I think it was a very positive development, was that when Ashton Jeanty statistically, and schematically didn't necessarily have it like he had for majority of the season outside of maybe the Hawaii game, Maddox Madsen played great football. He played tough football. He played, turnover free ball. He made great decisions. He threw a couple balls in great positions.
No sacks.
I was really impressed with Mad Dog, man. That was a signature performance from Maddox Madsen.
What frustrates people, I described it as bumpy. Sometimes it's bumpy for him out there, whether it's a weird tipped pass or just an odd play of a ball going right off a defender or something. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's never sacked. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's tough. Everybody, I was talking to Matt Lauder. He's like, nobody on the team prepares like that dude.
Yep.
So the preparation, like, I'm full on with Maddox Madsen. I hope he just gets a little better every week. Obviously, he could be a freaking legend in this town, dude. He's a sophomore.
Yeah,
he's going anywhere. But what? Well,
I have my concerns.
It's bumpy, dude.
Johnny, I have my concerns about the ceiling side of things because the roster is not going to look the same next year, bud. And definitely in 2 years, it's not going to look the same. He is the perfect. I've said this for weeks now, Johnny. He's the perfect quarterback in the perfect time for this situation at Boise State. The ceiling is the ceiling. He has worked so hard. Like the growth from last year to this year is absolutely incredible in terms of, and you can tell it's his growth. It's his work ethic. It's his preparation. But like in terms of ceiling, like I just watched Devin Dampier and he had a terrible game against CSU. That dude's special, man. Like you watch and you're like, oh boy. And now he's not very tall, but he's a creator. Like he's the guy that when it's clicking, he's rising all tides, man. And ships are sailing because of that dude. I don't necessarily see that right now as a big picture theme when you look at the history of Boise State. But what matters right now isn't 2025, 2026. It's right now. And he's
getting to the playoff, man, and maybe doing damage when you get there, right?
Absolutely. And like the 2 4th down conversions that Maddox Madsen had, man, that's just sheer guts, sheer bravery, audacity. Loved it. And so
gutsy. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just not, Johnny, I'm not a big, like I look at players because I've evaluated players my whole life. Am I right on all of them? Hell no. But I look at players from the perspective of like evaluate the individual player. Okay. That's my first piece of the information.
Okay.
And then I also kind of evaluate them relative to their situation. Right. And at the quarterback position, there are a lot of situations where you're the right quarterback at the right time for that team. Does that make you a complete superstar? Like you're going to be a legend? Not necessarily. Like Shedeur Sanders, for example. And I know everybody hates CU in Boise and Travis Hunter's an asshole and Shedeur Sanders does the watch thing too much. Dude, these guys are really freaking good. I coached that team 2 years ago. Shedeur Sanders is a creator himself. He rises tides like himself. That's a transformational quarterback, right? Ashton Jeanty is a transformational running back. No matter how it's blocked, and this is a new thing this year, in my opinion, no matter how it's blocked, I'm going to find my way to get mine to help this team win. And he's done it damn near every game, brother. Damn near every game.
Yeah.
He's done it every game.
He's going to shred San Diego State for whatever motivational reasons. He doesn't even need them. They're not great against the run, by the way, this year, Coach. San Diego State giving up 160 yards on the ground defensively, 4.0 yards per carry as a team. Better set the damn edge, man. If you don't, it's 70-yarder after 70-yarder with that dude. So yeah, anyway, back to Maddox real quick. Perfect quarterback this time, and continuing to get better. And anything else you want to put a bow on your quarterback evaluation?
No, I just trending in the right direction. I follow two programs, franchise and a program, very closely, and it's crazy the almost parallel path that Maddox Madsen and Bo Nix are taking. They don't take sacks. They don't turn the football over relative to top flight talent in their respective, levels of football. Are either one of them elite? No, but they're the right guy at the right time, man. And that's there's something to be said for that. That's, to me, that's exactly who Maddox Madsen is. He's going to be a really good quarterback here. I want to make this very clear. I'm not saying that in 25 he's going to be ass. It's going to be a little bit different without freaking Ashton Jeanty toting the stone for you. Let's just call it. Sider Gaines, great player. Yep. Freaking Breezy Dubar's great player. But we're talking about Ashton Jeanty as the Heisman at a Group of 5 school because he's that freaking good, not just because you roll out the next one. You're not going to see another running back at Boise State in the near future like Ashton Jeanty. You got to appreciate it. You got to enjoy it. It's not going to be next man up. And if you think so, you got the biggest case of rose-colored glasses, or you're just going to say, the Lord's going to keep blessing us with Ashton Jeanty at running back. That ain't the case, man. When you got a transformational
They learned their
player,
lesson with Kellen. They did, when they thought they were just going to, maybe reload quarterbacks on that. Speaking of Ashton,
Southwick wasn't Kellen. I mean, the Joe Southwick wasn't Kellen Moore, man. It just wasn't.
It's ball talk. It's BNN. It's your mic drop. Go for it.
This mic drop is brought to you by the concept of truth serum. Guys, I don't live in Boise, Idaho. I'm an alum. Follow the program really closely. I live in a top 13 media market in the United States, which is Denver, Colorado. Got every pro sports team. This is not a football crazed sports market. College football, I clarify, crazed market. So people grab bag from all of the narratives in Denver about what's going on in college football at the top 3% of college football. And right now, today, I talked about it 2 weeks ago. The narrative of the Heisman Trophy, just 2 weeks ago, just last week at this time, it was Ashton Jeanty's trophy. The truth serum moment is that the national narrative, mind you, that's who votes. How many voters are there in Boise, Idaho? How many voters wear blue and orange every day of the week and twice on Sunday? The national narrative is that there was a shift after the UNLV game in the Heisman Trophy. And right now, it is a true 4-man race at the top of the Heisman Trophy. Look at Las Vegas. They set odds for a reason. Dylan Gabriel's number 1. Travis Hunter's number 2. Cam Ward is right there, number 3, and Ashton Jeanty's number 4. That's what Vegas said. A week ago at this time, Ashton Jeanty was number 1. Is it over for Ashton Jeanty? No! I told you. Just 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, it is going to be a roller coaster. Every single week, there will be a new development. There's a lot of talk right now that Cam Ward's going to play, bigger, more high-profile games. Travis Hunter is, they have a chance at CU to be 10-2. Their road ahead of them looks pretty soft relative to, maybe some of their earlier games that they either won or lost. You got right now, the leader in the clubhouse is Dylan Gabriel. His schedule ahead is so soft. So what I have for the mic drop is this. The Heisman Trophy race is not over. Ashton Jeanty is in the thick of it. There will be ebbs and flows. What I would tell you is be patient. Keep showing up. Keep cheering on the Broncos. There are two races happening at the same time. The Boise State CFP race, Boise State Heisman race. And they don't always necessarily go hand in hand. That's okay. Because Ashton Jeanty is that special that he will show up and he will do the things that I know he will do. And after this week and probably next week, he will be reemerging in that top 1, top 2 discussion. Right now, he's number 4. I told you. I warned you. No matter what you say on X, no matter how many times you vote on polls, it's going to be the national voters that decide this. Shaming other candidates is not going to help you. In fact, it's actually a really bad look for the fan base, just to be really honest. I think Ashton Jeanty is still going to win this Heisman Trophy. I think he's going to run roughshod for the next several weeks. I think he's going to do it in the conference championship game. Ashton Jeanty is going to win the Heisman. Just relax. 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 Ashton Jeanty's winning this thing. Just take it 1 week at a time. That's my mic drop.
Well done, Ball Talk, BNN, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Little reset there, Coach. The stats are going to be enormous for Ashton the rest of the way. I'm just not buying the fact that I'm going to see another Mountain West defense do what UNLV did. And
they're real.
And they absolutely are. That's a tough team, well coached. Barry Odom got some dogs in there, guys who can play. But there were two plays, and everybody brought it up on Monday in the pressers. So Spencer and Dirk, like the turf monster actually tackled Ashton Jeanty. Like there was a time, I mean, he was gone and he got turf monstered. And
happens.
And yeah, totally. Right. And I'm just not buying that that's going to happen again in a game like UNLV. Like I think he's going to rush for, over 200 yards every single game here on out. And maybe they're not paying attention, but I think Spencer's an emotional guy, and I know how much he loves that kid. And you can speak as a coach, what that does for a program. You want in the Big 12, you want in this new super league of 70 teams, and we're starting from scratch. Who wants in this league? No grandfathers here. Sorry, Vanderbilt. Sorry, Iowa State. I'm just thinking some names, smaller community schools that are kind of in their leagues, not to take shots at people.
Yeah, you just named a team that beat Alabama and another team that's undefeated and probably going to the CFP. So other than that.
Diego Pavia, man, he's for real. But like teams like say like Indiana or whatever teams like that, if you're Boise State and you want in that super league and you're like, we just had a Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, that does give you a ton of street cred getting a Heisman winner to your program. So, I think within reason, I think everybody wants the kid to get it here in town.
Yes,
that's kind of the vibe I get.
Yeah, I mean, he's deserving of it, right? He's so deserving of it with his work ethic, his preparation, the way he takes care of his body, and just how dang good he is, Johnny. He's awesome to watch, man. There are other players that are awesome to watch that are also in a camp where their fan base thinks they're very deserving too. And so that's what I come back to, is that it'll all play out. Regarding like the national narrative of, a super conference forming, this being a positive feather in the cap of Boise State, I think it helps. Is it everything? No, it's really not that big of a deal, because that stuff's probably not going to take place for another 2, 3, 4 years. And this might be a distant memory, but it does help when you do have that feather in your cap. Ty Detmer win the Heisman Trophy?
1990.
Yeah, and you think about it, like they won the Heisman Trophy, won the national championship, but they weren't in a power conference until, they're not really even still in a power conference. The Big 12.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
Johnny, the Big 12. If you're not in the SEC or the Big 10, you are getting left behind, dude.
Yeah, I still think you're power now, but I get what you're saying. Isn't your brother-in-law the quarterback coach at BYU? Yeah. Is he watching this?
He knows. We talked about it. If you look at the week in, week out schedule of a Big 12 team versus the week in, week out schedule of an SEC team, they're two completely different storylines. Like there aren't many teams in the SEC that go into the year like BYU did, where the staff is concerned about keeping their jobs at the end of the year, and you come out undefeated after week 8. Like that doesn't happen in the SEC.
Biggest surprise season you've ever had in that regard?
Good question.
Surprise in a good way. Like, I don't know how we are, and holy shit,
Stanford. So it was the post Andrew Luck Stanford, 2011. The first year I was there, Stanford had gone to the Orange Bowl. Jim Harbaugh beelines and goes to the San Francisco 49ers, and then we had 1 year with Andrew Luck. So for me, I was like, this is it, man. This is the year. We got to make it go. He's gonna go to the draft next year. Rose and we Bowl. We didn't win the Pac-12 championship. We got boat raced by Oregon at home. It was College game day in Palo Alto. We got smoked. The next year,
game.
The next year we had freaking Josh Nunez playing quarterback. who started the year out really not great, man. Not great. And then he had a season-ending injury. And we had this goofy lacrosse playing quarterback with very little recruiting chops named Kevin Hogan that just started balling the hell out. And we actually did better than what Andrew Luck did. We won the Pac-12 championship and won a Rose Bowl, beat Barry Alvarez in his return to the Rose Bowl. And that was like one of those years where I'm like, dude, we don't win 7 this year, man. Next year we're coaching for our lives. Shoot, Kevin Hogan ended up going to 3 Rose Bowls in his career at Stanford. So
playing in the NFL.
That was incredibly surprising for sure.
Where's that ring?
It's in my bedroom. Yeah.
How many rings? You have the players, you had
10?
4 conference. You got more than 10, right?
I've kept 10. I don't know.
Okay.
I've kept 10. Yeah, I think 10. I think
there's some you're moving so much like, oh shit, what's that?
I don't love that one. It's not a great design. That was not that fun a year. That's kind of a consolation prize. You know me, Johnny. I'm not a participation trophy generation type of guy.
Bowl ring 2014.
Yeah, I got that one. You know, I got 3 I guess so it'd be 2 Rose Bowl rings, 3 Fiesta Bowl rings. Bunch of conference championship rings. So yeah, 10, I think is right.
What do you know about Sean Lewis? Let's get into San Diego State a little bit here on Ball Talk. I mean, they hung with Wazoo. I never know what to make of this team. They're boring, like San Diego
Wazoo
State.
Ranked right now?
Oh, yes, they are.
That's crazy to me.
Your boy Jake Dickert, man, the job he's doing, like him, Kalani Sitake, and Indiana. It is a tight race.
Kurt Signetti.
For coach of the year, but Dickert's doing a phenomenal job. I digress, though.
You there?
Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, I wanted San Diego State. Sean Lewis. What do you know about these guys?
Yeah, so I coached against the Sean Lewis led Kent State team. One of his first couple of years at Kent State, it was Jordan Love in 2019. We played in the Frisco Bowl against Kent State. And what I'll tell you is when we went to, like, I knew that they had a really surprising year. Kent State has been a really tough program to win at. Right now, I believe Kent State's 0-8, 0-9. And that's just 2 years removed from Sean Lewis being the head football coach there. So I watched them on tape. I thought we'd score half 100 on them. They played really hard, but their defensive structure was something that I was looking forward to calling ball plays against, to be honest. Well, we did score just about half 100. Problem is they scored a little bit more than half 100. That offense, that flash fast offense, the Kent State Golden Flashes, they called it the flash fast offense. It's a derivative of the old Baylor Art Briles scheme. There was a crossover. Yeah, so there's a crossover for Sean Lewis. It goes back even further, but Eastern Illinois, and then his connection with Dino Babers. And then he was a coordinator at Syracuse, got the head job at Kent State. That offense, when Syracuse was kind of starting to make some noise, I believe they upset Clemson 1 year. That's that flash fast offense because Dino Babers had worked for Art Briles at Baylor for a time. Then he left to go get the head coaching job at Eastern Illinois. Sean Lewis joined him there. It's a fast tempo offense that is predicated on running the football, which I love. I respect that. Because I think championships are won by running the rock. And if you run the rock, you're facing your own defense 90% of the year when you're in spring ball, fall camp. So your defense also gets hardened by that culture of running the football.
Ooh, gotcha.
So Johnny, I'll never forget this. So you'll love this. So I didn't know much about Kent State. I didn't know much about Sean Lewis. I knew he was like super tall dude. I knew he had played offensive line in college. And I knew he had a shaved head and like this kind of gnarly looking beard. Like he's
a head, big, tough looking dude.
Yeah.
Sean Lewis.
So that was kind of like we did it. Like, I think it was the first night we got there. They did one of those bowl events and it was at the Frisco Bowl venue, which is where the FC Dallas plays. Right. So it's in that MLS stadium, Major League Soccer stadium. So we get there and it's in it's in the National Soccer Hall of Fame. And we're in Utah State. Our guys are just kind of, wearing sweatsuits, kind of, nobody's matching their shoes. Yeah, just very casual. These dudes roll up and they got like They're wearing like collared shirts. Like I'm talking like blue collar vibes. Like they had like flannel collar shirts. Their whole team and coaching staff and strength staff and sports medicine staff, every one of them had a beard.
What?
Like every one of them. And I like, there were some bad beards, like guys that were missing a chunk here.
Oh yeah, because not all kids can grow them yet, or adults in some cases. Yeah.
And they came in, their shirts were tucked in. A lot of them had cowboy hats on because it was the Frisco Bowl. I'm like, who the hell are we playing? Are we playing a damn rodeo squad, man? This is wild. And so those dudes roll in, and I kind of like, I was fascinated by it. I've been around football my whole life, and so I kind of started asking around, like, you know, if I ran into a couple of their coaches, like, hey, what's up with the beards, man? He's like, Sean Lewis's culture is be the alpha. Like be the alpha. Be the guy, the top dog, the tough guy, like toxic masculinity type stuff. And it was like, I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, these dudes are for real. So we roll up, play the game. These dudes would not quit, dude. They were so tough. We scored. Jordan Love, I think, threw for like, I don't know. It felt like he threw for 500 yards, tons of touchdowns. These guys were scrappy. They kept finding ways. They had some gnarly looking quarterback that in pregame warmups, I'm like, that's the ugliest throwing motion I've ever seen. He throws for like 470 and like 6 teeters.
What was the motion like?
I just bad. Really sidearm, but then his shoulders went all over the place. It was just ugly.
Are you one of those coaches, those football guys? Like, I don't know if you know certain people. I can't remember who it is, but like certain people could do like any baseball player's batting stance ever. They can mimic them. Are you one of those guys that can mimic quarterback's throwing motion? Like, this is how Dan Marino threw. Oh, this is no way. Warren Moon kept it back here. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm one of those geeks.
I can talk through it. I could dork around when I'm warming up with you know, my group of quarterbacks I'm coaching, but never like to where I'd go viral on YouTube or TikTok because they're so good. So
all right. How are you attacking San Diego State Friday night? What do you think Boise State's going to roll with? What do you expect here? What are dot your I's, cross your T's, typical game plan you think you're going to see Friday?
Yeah, I think it's going to be probably a fairly heavy leaning into some of the bigger personnel groupings, you know, using, you know, multiple tight ends on the field at a time, maybe even some crow teams that like Sean Lewis. He's in year one of a cultural shift. He's also in year one of building his offense and defense in terms of the personnel matching the scheme and then the culture matching what he wants. So I think you lean on these dudes. You're going to be bigger. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be faster. You're going to be more mature. You're going to be more cohesive. And so the best thing you can do is lean into your strengths. You don't want to give them hope. You don't want to turn the football over. You know, they have some quarterback issues themselves. I believe Danny O'Neill, who was at one time committed to CU Boulder when Sean Lewis was the OC in just one season under Coach Prime. He ended up flipping his commitment, signed with San Diego State, enrolled early, and then ended up being the starting quarterback. I think he's a good dual threat type player. He's from Indianapolis, Indiana originally. I think he's banged up right now. Johnny, do you know if that's true? Is he injured? Danny O'Neill?
I've heard he has been. I don't know if it's still
I don't
the
think
case.
He played last game, or maybe he was hurt early in that game.
I think he's probably playing.
Yeah, so you're breaking in most likely an inexperienced quarterback, at least relative to the system. You know, so I think that you just cut it loose and do what you do, and that's hand the ball off to number 2 and play action with Big Mad Dog. And you know, one development that just hasn't come to fruition quite yet with consistency, and that I talked a lot about in the early season, is just a dominant receiving core that has length and makes plays when the ball's in the air on a consistent basis. That might be a little sneaky little storyline to watch for, particularly in the play action game, is the Prince Straughns of the world. I think he's healthy, right? He played against UNLV.
Yeah, they're just rotating, and hasn't been a ton of targets to go around. Latrell Caples is a guy that I want to see targeted more. It's been, I know he's battled an injury, and I don't know where he is health-wise. We haven't had a chance to talk to him in weeks with the media. But I'd like to see him get it going as well. But no, I
So,
think they're
Johnny,
healthy enough
just
there.
right now today, like after, say, the last 3-4 games of a sample size, who's your wide receiver one today?
Cam Camper.
Okay.
Easily. Rapport with Maddox, route running. He just makes plays, man.
He does.
Feels like he catches balls and there's nobody around him. I mean, it's easily Cam Camper. I'm sure people would agree in the chat as well. We're going to wrap this up in a few minutes, but I wanted to give everybody in the chat, if you have a real nerdy football question, maybe it's when you watch it on TV or something you've always wondered, why don't they do this or that? Get it in the chat room right now, and we're going to answer it. I have a couple that I'm going to start you off with, Coach. Maybe I've asked you this, maybe I haven't. I can't remember. Did you teach your offensive linemen to learn how to read defensive coverages? I would think if I'm an offensive guard and I have I'm pretty damn sure they're in a cover 4, I know that there's a good chance they're going to do this. So I'm going to possibly block or whatever a different way because I know what type of coverage they're in. Do you teach linemen to pay attention to that, or is there too much other shit going on?
Historically, Johnny, I've allowed the offensive line coach. So like early on in my career as a coordinator, I allowed the offensive line coach to teach that. Scott Huff taught it so damn well that I didn't do anything from the coordinator position to mandate any type of, expedited view of coverage. The irony is that later on in my career, when I took over as the offense coordinator at CU, we had, I think it was like 1 or 2 returning starters because of the portal had just zapped our entire roster before I got there. I made the decision in the offseason to go through a full, we put together a curriculum, like a study guide for the entire offense to go through together, where I taught football school. And part of that was coverage recognition. And the way I taught it to offensive linemen is not to you're looking at the safeties and where the corners are at and the nickels. I taught them from their perspective to look at the triangles that were right in front of them, so it might be the triangle of, the inside linebacker, the nickel, and the near safety to your side. That's going to tell you 2 high, 1 high. And the contour of those types of triangles, like essentially a wider, like would it be like a obtuse angle with it, where the nickel is out very wide and the safety is like kind of in between the middle linebacker and the nickel. That safety's coming down. That's a 1 high coverage look, or, a wide safety in the triangle, and then the nickel's in your peripheral. And then you have the middle linebacker is playing straight up over you. That would be more of a 2 high look. So we taught more of the kind of the contour of the triangles that would help them ascertain information to help them understand where pressure might be coming from, and, or, if there is an extra element that's going to be introduced to the box post snap.
What you got on this one? Why does Eric Shenander call deep cover 4 schemes while also blitzing, teams killing us by throwing to the vacated linebacker area? Are you noticing any of that? Is it you get what you pay for? I mean, if you're going to pressure somebody, yes, you're going to be open in certain areas if the offense beats the blitz. What do you make of that comment?
I love it. I love the question, and I love the scheme. How's Boise State doing in their sacks right now?
They're number 1 in the country.
Yeah. How often have they pressured and gotten beat with major touchdown throws that have affected the outcome of the game?
I mean, they've been beat several times on that.
On those pressure looks, though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. I know what you're saying, and I agree with you, man.
So this is, I'm going to use, I don't know, it might be outdated language, but we used to call that style. So when you're blitzing 5 and you play a soft quarter shell behind it, yes, you can kind of dink and dunk underneath. You can get those vacated zones, if you will. So you're playing 4 deep, 2 under. So the idea is that you keep a lid on the defense by playing damn near like a picket fence cover 4. and then you play vision with the two underneath players because you don't have two flat players and then a middle hook defender like you typically do in cover 4. So we call that vision quarters, and it's like vision 4 blitz quarters. So those inside backers are essentially taught to periph their adjacent eligible receivers while reading the eyes of the quarterback. And then the 5 blitzers are doing their best to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, create panic, and then that ball ends up finding either one of those underneath players or a tip that finds one of those deep quarters players, all the while playing top-down defense. It's a great call on 3rd and 12, 3rd and 14, because you force the ball out of the quarterback's hand, you keep the ball in front of you, and then you can ultimately rally to the ball carrier and tackle in front of the sticks. The other byproduct that's positive of it is that if you indeed do get a quarterback that's panicked, didn't anticipate it because a quarter shell is telling you no blitz. Well, all of a sudden, you see too high, you think coverage, right? That's that NFL shell coverage that Mel Kiper was talking about should be outlawed. So you don't get the indicators of a blitz look. And so a lot of times all of a sudden there's a free hitter and the quarterback panics and he just throws one up out of panic that can be picked off. So
all right, couple more. This is an interesting one too. You and Shenander Chins, some of his background. Didn't he just totally bottle you up? You're the OC at Minnesota. Chins is the DC at Nebraska. Didn't that wasn't that kind of ugly for you, Coach?
Yeah, I checked the record, 2-0 for the Sandman.
Against Chins, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
You're 2-0 against his defenses?
Yeah. You know what I will say though about Chins, there were a lot of things going on in Nebraska that I think were out of his control. Just culturally, athletic department, university, COVID. Yeah. I coached against him in COVID.
Yeah,
we did. It was wild. We took a team in 2020, Rashad Bateman, the receiver that just got hit with a spear and dropped it for the Baltimore Ravens. Did you see that ridiculous drop on a downfield throw from Lamar Jackson? That was Rashad Bateman. He was at Minnesota. He opted out of the season, so we were down him. Mohamed Ibrahim, the big time running back, was banged up, and actually he might have played that game. And we were down. I think we had like 37 guys that tested positive for COVID the week of that game. Man. And we played the game. I think we had a total of 3 regular starters playing for us. And so, I don't know, we were like massive underdogs because of who we were rolling out there. And we ended up playing really well. And then in 2021, the non-COVID year, we played really well offensively. We RPO'd Nebraska pretty well, man. I'm not going to lie. And ran the rock fairly decent.
One more, Todd. Why don't you think Dirk doesn't run more 2-back sets? I know we've had a lot of injuries, but it doesn't seem very creative. Some 2-back sets, some misdirection. What are you thinking of Todd? I love it, man. Todd, armchair OC. We all are.
Yeah, I mean, I do that too. I would say I haven't done it much with Boise State this year. I haven't watched it and said, like, dude, what are they doing, bro? Like, I just haven't. There are a lot of teams. It's funny when I watch CU a lot because I talk about them on radio and podcasts a ton here locally in Denver. And there's a lot of teams that play against CU. And I'm like, dude, why would you do that? Because I know CU's team really well. So offensively or defensively, I'm like, dude, this is a bad plan. I would say this. I mean, I think there has been a good amount of creativity. There is a semblance of why overthink it, why complicate it, why get too cute when you're in a position right now where number 2 is just making things right so often, and so when I'd say the special sauce this year for Boise State has been in the play action game. That's to me what is creating the opportunities to at least create indecision for a defense that's trying to play heavy box defense, is that you're going to get those deep over routes that you're seeing Austin Bolt catch and Louder catch. That's the great equalizer against teams that are playing really heavy downhill run fits with their second and third levels, is that play action game. So that's been the piece of it for me. I mean, I love T. Crow. I love Tyler Crow as a football player. I don't think he's a true like die in the wool fullback. That's a different world, man. And Dirk knows what a true fullback looks and smells like in terms of their ability to move a person from point A to point B in a high-speed collision environment.
That's what you need to do, huh? Move somebody.
Now I would say some of the two tailback sets. I mean, that's been a thing I've loved. I love when that makes an appearance, but crazy as it seems, man, Boise State's had major health issues.
You have no depth anymore.
In the running back position, not named Ashton Jeanty, which is wild. Yeah, especially that's why shouldering the load.
That's why I would say Todd, like Mel Kiper. This Dylan Riley can barely play, and Tyler Crow is, like you said, Tyler Crow. Sire Gaines gone, Breezy Dubar been gone. They just don't have the depth there. I couldn't imagine if they lost Jeanty, and it's a two-headed monster. I think it would be in this sense of T. Crow and Dylan Riley. I mean, all of a sudden this offense looks, as you know, drastically different on that.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I hate to be like Debbie Downer or parade rainer here, but even in that UNLV game when number 2 went to the sideline and that elbow, I mean, I still think that that scared the hell out of me, man. I don't know. This might have been talked about on all week in Boise, so I apologize if you guys have beat this up, but just watching that game and seeing the way Ashton Jeanty came down on it, that's a hyperextension. There's no other way around it. Does it mean that it's major ligament damage? I don't know. Does it mean it's a fracture? Clearly, probably not. But he was in pain, man. And what I thought is that one of Ashton Jeanty's, one of many, but I think his most effective tool to break the first tackle is his stiff arm, brother. And when he lost that stiff arm, like that had me concerned. And then even more than that, when number 2 was on the sideline, dude, it felt way different. Like way different. Did it not, Johnny? Did it not feel like
it was different? Not even a feeling. It's just that's how it is. That's how much they need him. So I don't think they need to be running all these 2-back sets all in all. Look, they have a top 10 offense in America in most statistical categories. Only a service academy is out rushing this team. I mean, god dang, man. Sometimes it's like, I think with this fan base with Dirk, it's like, I'm just like, damn, don't tell me about the labor. Just bring me the damn baby. And the baby is 100%.
I've used that line with my wife. I used that line with my wife, and it didn't go great, man. Quit telling me about the labor pains and just show me the freaking baby.
That's a funny. I think I heard Bill Parcells say that the first time. I'm sure he didn't create it. Let's wrap this sucker up. Boise State minus 23.5. Friday night at home against San Diego State, an over-under of 57.5. What's your thoughts on the spread? What would you advise everybody there? Are you Boise State laying the points? Or are you over or are you under 57.5, Coach?
I like Boise State winning the football game, and I like the culture of Sean Lewis keeping it closer than probably Vegas thinks.
Okay.
Like you look at San Diego State's season, they started out pretty poorly. They've gotten better as the year went on. They were competitive against Washington State, had the lead for a decent chunk of that, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. But they've been in ball games, man. They've been in fairly tight ball games, not against great teams, but they're tough. They're gritty. They have a mentality where they're not just going to show up and get rolled over. They're not going to be. Sean Lewis has got those guys in a space where they're not going to come to the blue and just be like, wow, that's Ashton Jeanty over there, man. He's so good. I mean, there's going to be none of that, Johnny. So,
okay.
Boise State's going to win by, I'm going to say Boise State wins by 17.
All right. Total points scored in this game, over or under 57.
That's a tough one, man. I think Vegas is really good at their job. I think that 37-20 could be a real number. That's kind of how I see it going, man. If anything, I look at the Hawaii game and I look at the UNLV game, just in terms of, I wouldn't say a blueprint to beat Boise State because neither team even remotely did it. but maybe a blueprint to defend Ashton Jeanty and keep the game close. So I think when there is a blueprint and it has been successfully executed, a team with a good culture, a toughness, a mentality, they can replicate a blueprint. And so do I think 50 points? I don't think that 50 points are going to be scored by Boise State in this game. I don't.
All right, Coach. I'm going to say I think they will. I'm going to say Boise State like 1,000,000-6. I think they're going to hammer San Diego State. They're going to be ready. Coach,
when's the last time I said that against Portland State? Obviously, that was a little closer than
I'm giving the 23.5. Boise State 58. San Diego State 17. I'm also going over on that, man. Another episode, season 2, episode 8. Well done, Coach.
Thank you, brother. It's going to be fun to watch on Friday night, man.
Heck yeah, guys. Appreciate you guys on BNN. Thank you to all of BJ's sponsors who do a great job with this thing and support the companies that support Bronco Nation News. Ball Talk, Sanford, Johnny. We'll catch